Hello, everyone. I just want to do a brief video that would be a general overview of the Meno. The Meno is called the Meno because it's the name of the man that Socrates is speaking with, primarily in this dialogue. It's the only reason it's called that. It's named after the person. This is written by Plato, the great ancient Greek philosopher. In some ways, the most important philosopher of all in Western philosophy. Plato wrote it, and Socrates, who was also a real person, as Meno was Plato's teacher and never wrote anything. But when Plato, later in life, after Socrates' death, sat down, began to write out his own philosophy, well, what did he do? He wrote dialogues using Socrates, his friend, as the main character. Now, whether those dialogues really reflect anything that Socrates actually said or Socrates' own philosophy, probably. But it's also probably true that Plato had his own ideas that he was working out through what Socrates said. So the Meno is a very rich dialogue, and you'll see in terms of the readings that I have divided up into three parts. I think that it naturally divides itself into three parts. Socrates and Meno's initial conversation, inquiring into the nature of virtue, which ends with Meno's famous objection about the possibility of inquiry. Then the middle part, in which Socrates tries to overcome that objection about the possibility of inquiry by presenting the doctrine that all knowledge is simply recollection, and the famous demonstration or attempt to demonstrate that thesis by use of a young boy looking into a problem, a very key problem, I would say, in ancient geometry or Euclidean geometry, whatever you want to call it. And then the third part, in which Socrates and Meno and this third character, Anytus, look into the question of whether virtue is teachable. So it's a varied dialogue, and yes, its initial or its central question is the question of virtue. So it might seem that it belongs more in a moral philosophy class than a class called critical reasoning, but I have given it to you because it is more than an inquiry into the specific question of virtue, which is a very interesting word, which I'll be talking about a little bit more in further videos. It is, in fact, a reflection on the nature of inquiry itself. I've said that the main subject of this course is reasoning becoming more aware of itself. Reasoning being reasoning in pursuit of knowledge and truth, and philosophy, to some degree, or the history of Western philosophy at least, is the progressive reflection on what reason is and what it can hope to do, and what we need it for, and what we can hope to do with it. And the Meno is a great example of that, and that's why we're reading it. I mean, it's a very, very key and fascinating conversation that they have in terms of a philosopher thinking about the difficulties that are involved in reasoning, in philosophical inquiry, in the pursuit of truth, and some very interesting ideas about how the problems that come up are to be solved or perhaps are actually insoluble. It's very much open to interpretation.